this video is about. She ignored everyone at the party until her father whispered, "This is your moment." If this story touches your heart, please like the video and share your thoughts in comments. The autumn chill had settled over the city, wrapping its tendrils around the streets like a forgotten memory. Leaves swept across sidewalks in a whirlwind of gold and crimson, and the air was thick with the scent of mulled cider and the faint, lingering promise of winter. For most, this time of year sparked excitement, the anticipation of gatherings and shared laughter. But for Claire, it marked the beginning of an internal countdown. The invitation had arrived weeks prior, a crisp, cream-colored card, embossed with gold lettering announcing the grand celebration of her father's 60th birthday. A night of memory and magic, it proclaimed. Yet for Claire, the only magic this occasion promised was the sorcery of avoidance, the ability to disappear into the background, to blend with the wallpaper, to not be seen. The night of the party, as she stood in front of her bedroom mirror, Claire's reflection seemed like a stranger. The dress, a deep emerald that hugged her form and swayed gently with her movements, felt suffocating. She had chosen it on a whim, hoping to project some semblance of confidence, but now it felt like a mask, a facade that trapped her deeper in her own insecurities. "Are you almost ready?" Her mother called from downstairs, the warmth in her voice a stark contrast to the chill creeping into Claire's bones. "Yeah, just a minute," Claire replied, her voice barely above a whisper. A hollow sensation formed in her chest at the thought of mingling with the sea of faces that would await her at the venue. A lavish hall with marble floors and twinkling chandeliers, her father's favorite place, where laughter echoed and memories were etched into the very walls. In the end, she emerged from her sanctuary and descended the staircase, her heart drumming a frantic rhythm against her ribcage. Each step was a reminder of the expectations that loomed over her like a shadow. At the bottom, her mother beamed, adjusting the necklace around her own neck, polished and elegant. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," she said, her eyes dancing with pride. "Thanks, Mom," Claire replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She felt a tug of guilt for not feeling as enthusiastic as her mother, who had spent weeks organizing every detail of the evening. As they stepped outside into the brisk night, Claire's breath clouded in front of her, a soft reminder of her own presence in the world. Her father was already waiting in the car, his laughter ringing out as he conversed with a couple of guests who had arrived early. Claire hesitated for a moment, watching him, his face alight with joy. It was a rare expression, and she hated to be the one to dim it. "Come on, Claire, get in," her father called, waving her over with a wide grin, the kind that creased the corners of his eyes. With a deep breath, she approached, sliding into the back seat. As the car pulled away from their home, her anxiety swelled with each passing block. She could already envision herself standing in the corner, clutching a glass of sparkling water, her gaze flickering from one group to another, feeling like a ghost haunting her own family celebration. Arriving at the venue, Claire felt the atmosphere change. The air buzzed with excitement, a symphony of voices intertwining, laughter cascading like music. She stepped into the grand hall, where tables adorned with flickering candles awaited their guests, but a heaviness settled in her chest. "Claire, I'm so glad you made it," called an aunt, enveloping her in a quick hug, the scent of floral perfume overwhelming her senses. "Hi, Aunt Linda," Claire mumbled, her voice lost amidst the crowd's chatter. She could hardly focus on the well-wishing, the small talk that was intended to nurture connections, but felt like a series of hoops she had to jump through. As she scanned the room, her gaze landed on a small group of her father's friends, their laughter deep and hearty, a stark contrast to the tightness in her own chest. She turned her focus to a distant corner of the hall, where a table overflowing with food shimmered under the golden light. Perhaps she could find solace there, away from the noise. Claire, her father's voice cut through the din, and she turned just in time to see him approach, his expression a cocktail of pride and warmth. "I want you to meet someone." Before she could protest, he guided her toward a cluster of guests, all smiles and animated conversations. "Everyone, this is my daughter Claire," he introduced her, the way a proud father would present a trophy. "She's just finished her first year at university." "Nice to meet you, Claire," a woman exclaimed, extending her hand. "Your dad has told us so much about you. We're all so excited for you." "Thanks, nice to meet you too," she managed, her voice strained. The words felt like stones in her throat. Her father's friends were lovely, but their attention felt suffocating. As the conversations flowed around her, Claire felt the tug of her insecurities rise like a tide, drowning out the laughter that mingled in the air. She could feel her heart racing, a primal urge to flee clawing at her insides. Instead, she gripped the edge of the table, grounding herself, focusing on the patterns of the tablecloth, while her father continued to talk excitedly about her studies. "Claire's studying literature," he boasted, pride shimmering in his eyes. "She's going to write the next great American novel, I just know it." "Wow, that's impressive," a middle-aged man chimed in. "What's your favorite genre?" I read a lot of different things," Claire replied, her fingers tracing the intricate design of the tablecloth. The sudden focus on her felt like a spotlight, and she wanted nothing more than to step away from the stage. "Have you thought about what you want to write?" Another voice asked, curiosity painted across her features. But Claire's thoughts were racing. She could feel the pressure building up inside her chest, the words she wanted to say muddled and tangled like a ball of yarn. Claire, her father interrupted, clearly oblivious to her internal struggle. "This is your moment. You can't hide from your talent forever." His voice was a gentle nudge, encouraging yet firm. It was the kind of statement that made her heart flutter with both embarrassment and dread. Did he really think she could step into the spotlight, or was he just projecting his own dreams onto her? "Dad, Claire started, but the words felt stuck. She could feel the weight of her father's expectations pressing down on her, and suddenly she wanted to vanish. "Come on, Claire, just tell them about that poem you wrote, the one you sent me." He beamed at her, his enthusiasm contagious to those around him. And there it was, the moment that felt like a trap rather than a stage. The poem she wrote in the quiet of her dorm room, ink spilling onto the page in a fit of inspiration, felt raw and exposed, far too fragile for this audience. I'm not really ready to share it," she murmured, her voice barely audible against the chatter. "Why not?" he pressed, genuine confusion lacing his words. "Everyone here loves your work. You can't let fear hold you back. Just take a step forward." As she stood surrounded by the warmth of the celebration, the vibrant laughter echoing around her, a single bead of sweat began to trickle down her spine. The room spun with potential, with expectations, and Claire felt herself caught in the crossfire of her father's hope and her own self-doubt. It was a moment, a singular moment, where the entire world seemed to hinge on her decision to speak, to share, to be seen. Yet all she wanted was to slip through the cracks, back into the shadows where the weight of the world felt lighter. "Just breathe, Claire," she thought, her heart thudding a frantic beat against her chest. "You can do this." But as her father's encouraging smile met her gaze, Claire felt the familiar tug of retreat surge within her, drowning any spark of courage before it could ignite. "Claire," she heard him whisper, and the weight of the world around her shifted. "This is your moment." The air in the hall buzzed like a live wire, the vibrant colors and sounds swirling around Claire, amplifying the tension that coiled tightly in her stomach. The chatter continued to rise and fall like waves crashing against a shore, and she felt herself teetering on the edge of retreat. Her father's words echoed in her mind, urging her to step into the light, yet every instinct screamed for her to hide. "Dad, please," she whispered, the plea escaping her lips almost involuntarily. Desperation flickered in her eyes, and she glanced around at the eager faces surrounding her, faces that were, in truth, filled with kindness, but to her, they felt like an unyielding audience waiting for a performance she didn't believe she could deliver. "Just a few lines, Claire," her father encouraged, his tone soothing yet insistent. He leaned in, his eyes sparkling with an earnestness that tugged at her heartstrings. "You write beautifully. You have something to share, and there are people here who would love to hear it. Maybe later," she suggested, the words tumbling over each other in her haste to find a way out. "I'm not really feeling up for it right now." "Don't hide your light under a bushel," a woman chimed in, her voice warm and melodic. Claire recognized her, a family friend who had always taken a special interest in her writing. "We would love to hear your voice, Claire. You know it's been too long since the last time we heard from you." Claire felt her cheeks flush, heat creeping up to her ears. The thought of being under the spotlight now was like standing naked in front of 1,000 eyes. "I really don't think I'm ready," she insisted, her voice shaky. But as her father's gaze remained steady, the flicker of disappointment in his eyes struck a chord deep within her. It was a reminder of all the moments she had let her fears dictate her actions, all the little opportunities she had passed up because she felt unworthy or unprepared. "Come on, Claire," he whispered, leaning closer, his voice soothing against the clamor of the party. "You're not just my daughter, you're a gifted writer with a voice that matters. You've got to own that. This is your moment." At that moment, something shifted. Claire took a breath, a deep, shaky inhale that felt like it pulled air into her very soul. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat, envisioning the empty pages of her notebook and the raw beauty that had spilled forth from her heart. Words that had been only hers, hidden away like secrets, began to swirl in her mind, begging for release. As the moments passed in silence, she felt the weight of her father's expectations settling in her chest, mingling with her own fears. Could she really step out from the shadows? Could she share the most intimate parts of herself with others? Her heart raced, thumping against her ribcage as she slowly opened her eyes. She caught her father's gaze, blazing with encouragement and love, and felt a flicker of courage ignite within her. "All right," she finally said, the words escaping her lips before she had the chance to second-guess herself. "I'll do it. That's my girl," her father exclaimed, beaming with pride. "Just remember, we're all rooting for you," the family friend said, her voice filled with warmth. Claire's heart raced as she stepped away from the table, her legs feeling slightly unsteady beneath her. She pushed through the cluster of guests, navigating the sea of faces that blurred together like a watercolor painting. Each step felt monumental, and she could hear the chatter begin to fade into a distant hum, the world around her narrowing to a singular focus, the moment she'd been avoiding. As she reached the center of the room, she felt an unfamiliar rush, an odd blend of anxiety and exhilaration, like standing on the cusp of a precipice. Her father joined her, his presence a steadying force. He stood by her side, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder, grounding her as she faced the crowd. "Everyone," he called, raising his voice to capture their attention. "We have a special treat. Claire is going to share something she's written." The room began to quiet, the buzz of conversation fading into a palpable hush. Claire felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on her, an intense spotlight illuminating her insecurities, and she swallowed hard. She glanced at her father, who smiled reassuringly, and she took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus on the words that danced in her mind. She began, her voice wavering as she felt her palms grow clammy. "I wrote a poem during my first year at university. It's kind of personal, so I hope you'll bear with me." The guests nodded, some even encouragingly smiled, and a wave of warmth began to wash over her. Claire closed her eyes for a brief moment, centering herself before letting the words flow. "It's called The Space Between Dreams," she announced, her voice trembling slightly but gaining strength as she continued. "In the stillness of night, I chase shadows, dreams woven with whispers, each thread a promise, fragile as the dawn." As she spoke, Claire could feel the words come alive, painting vivid images in the minds of her listeners. The rhythm of her voice rose and fell like a gentle tide, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. Her heart raced, but she found a rhythm, a connection with the audience that felt both foreign and exhilarating. Yet here I stand, at the crossroads of fear, the echoes of doubt, whispering sweet nothings to my trembling heart. The words flowed like water, gliding off her tongue, and she could feel the energy of the room shift. She glanced at her father, who wore that proud smile again, and it sparked an ember of confidence within her. Each step a battle, each breath a prayer, to rise above the chaos, to find my voice in the silence, to dance in the space between dreams. The final line hung in the air, and the room was silent for a heartbeat before a wave of applause erupted, washing over her like a tide. Claire's heart soared, a rush of warmth flooding through her as she opened her eyes, the moment crystallizing in her memory. "Bravo, Claire!" her father shouted, his voice a beacon in the storm of emotions swirling around her. "That was incredible." As the applause reverberated in her ears, Claire felt light, as though she had shed a heavy cloak. The fears that had held her captive began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of connection and acceptance she had longed for. She stood before her family and friends, not as the girl who hid in the background, but as a voice worth listening to, a writer ready to embrace her story. "Thank you," she managed, her voice steadier now, filled with gratitude. "Thank you for listening." The warmth of the room enveloped her, and she realized that sharing her work hadn't been about revealing her vulnerabilities. It had been about forging connections through the beauty of her words. The moment her father had called out to her had transformed into something more significant than she could have imagined. As the party resumed, Claire felt buoyed by a newfound sense of belonging. Conversations swirled around her, laughter echoed, and for the first time that night, she didn't feel like a shadow hiding in the corner. She mingled with guests, her heart lighter and her spirit ignited by the shared experience of the poem. "See," her father said, sidling up to her with a proud grin. "You were meant to share that. You really are incredible, Claire." "Thanks, Dad," she replied, her heart swelling with affection. "I guess I needed a little nudge. Sometimes it takes a little push to remind us of who we are," he said, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. As the evening continued, Claire found herself swept up in conversations, joy radiating through her. She talked about her studies, exchanged ideas about literature, even laughed at shared memories. The fear that had gripped her earlier ebbed away, and in its place blossomed a sense of possibility, a realization that she could be whoever she wanted to be. And as she looked around at the faces of her family and friends, she understood that this moment, this night filled with laughter and love, was only the beginning. She was ready to embrace the future, to share her light and let her voice be heard. The walls around her heart had started to crumble, and she no longer felt the need to hide. This was her moment, not just of stepping into the spotlight, but of reclaiming her story, one word at a time. The sounds of the party enveloped Claire as she moved through the room, a newfound vibrancy coursing through her veins. The earlier trepidation that clung to her like a second skin had dissipated, replaced with a buoyant energy that felt both exhilarating and surreal. She was acutely aware of the eyes that now looked at her with warmth and admiration, not as a distant figure lurking in the shadows, but as someone who had something to offer. She smiled as she joined a small group gathered near the bar, her father's friends animatedly discussing the merits of a recently released novel. Claire felt the familiar flutter in her chest, a blend of excitement and nervousness. But this time, it was overshadowed by a glimmer of confidence. "Claire, you just read that beautiful poem, didn't you?" A woman named Eliza, one of her father's college friends, turned to her, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Yes," Claire replied, her cheeks flushing slightly. "It was nerve-wracking, but also kind of amazing." "That's the beauty of sharing your work," Eliza said, her voice melodic and encouraging. "You never know who might resonate with your words. And I must say, you have a gift, Claire. I could feel every emotion you poured into that piece." "Thank you," Claire said, her heart swelling at the compliment. She felt a stirring in her chest, a sense of belonging that had once felt so far away. "It means a lot to hear that. Are you working on anything new?" Another voice chimed in. It was Marcus, her father's old friend, who had a penchant for literary debates that often left his audience entranced. "I am actually," Claire replied, the words flowing freely now. "I've been toying with the idea of a collection of poems that explores the concept of identity and self-discovery. It's something I've been grappling with in my own life." "Oh, I love that," Eliza exclaimed. "The struggle of understanding oneself is so relatable. I think it's something everyone can connect to on some level." Claire found herself caught in a web of conversation, the threads woven seamlessly by her willingness to share more about her work. The initial fear that had grasped her throat like a vice slowly unraveled, allowing her to articulate her thoughts without second-guessing herself. She felt alive, swept up in the rhythm of their discussion. "Have you considered publishing?" Marcus asked, his brow furrowed in thought. "With your talent, there's no doubt you'd find a publisher interested in your work." "Honestly, I've thought about it, but I don't know if I'm ready," Claire admitted, her voice cautious. "It feels like a big leap, and I'm still figuring things out." "Don't underestimate yourself," he said, leaning closer as if he were sharing a secret. "Every great writer starts somewhere, and your voice deserves to be heard. You just took the first step tonight. Trust me, it gets easier from here." Something within Claire stirred, a small flicker of ambition igniting. "Thank you for saying that," she replied, a smile creeping onto her face. "I think I need to remind myself that every journey begins with a single step." "Exactly," Eliza chimed in, her enthusiasm infectious. "Just keep writing and don't forget to share it. There's power in vulnerability, and the more you share, the more you'll find your voice." The warmth of their encouragement enveloped her, and she felt as though she was standing on the precipice of something new and beautiful. Each word spoken in this circle of support became a stepping stone toward her dreams. Just then, her father approached, his face aglow with pride as he caught the tail end of the conversation. "What are we talking about?" he asked, his eyes twinkling as they shifted from Claire to her newfound friends. "Claire's work," Eliza said, her voice bright. "We were just discussing how she's considering publishing her poetry. I think she has incredible potential." "Oh, I know she does." Her father beamed, a sense of warmth radiating from him. "I've always said she was destined for greatness. Claire, remember what I said earlier, this is your moment. Don't let fear hold you back." "Thank you, Dad," Claire said softly, her heart swelling. "You've always been my biggest supporter." "Always," he affirmed, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, drawing her close. "I believe in you, Claire. You have a voice that deserves to be heard." The conversation continued to flow, each exchange reinforcing the bond of camaraderie that enveloped them. The laughter and voices of the party swirled around her like a comforting embrace, and Claire found herself drifting from group to group, mingling effortlessly with friends and family who were eager to learn more about her journey. Later, she found herself at a table adorned with an assortment of desserts, her gaze lingering on the decadent cake her mother had specially ordered for the occasion. As she reached for a slice and savored the rich chocolate, she felt a rush of gratitude for this moment, one she would forever remember as a turning point in her life. "Claire," her mother called from across the room, her voice bright and warm. "Come here, I want to show you something." Curiosity piqued, Claire made her way through the crowd, her heart still buoyed by the earlier conversations. Her mother stood beside a large photo display, a collection of images chronicling her father's life, from his mischievous childhood antics to milestone birthdays, and all the cherished memories in between. "Look at this," her mother said, pointing to a photograph of her father as a young man, his smile wide and infectious. He was such a dreamer, always chasing after the next big adventure. Claire chuckled at the sight, her heart swelling with warmth. "He hasn't changed much, has he?" she commented, her eyes glimmering with affection. "No, he's always had that spark," her mother agreed, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "And he's passed that on to you, you know. You both have this incredible ability to dream big. Sometimes it's hard to remember that when you're caught up in your own head," Claire admitted, her tone reflective. "But tonight has been a reminder that I can embrace that spark." Her mother's eyes softened and she nodded knowingly. "You've always been a storyteller, Claire. Don't forget that. Your words hold power and I can't wait to see where they take you." Just then, the sound of a toast echoed through the hall, drawing everyone's attention back to the center of the room. Her father stood with a glass raised high, his expression a blend of joy and earnestness. "Everyone, can I have your attention, please?" he called, his voice booming with confidence. "This night has been a celebration of not just my birthday, but the incredible people who surround me, especially my daughter, Claire. She's given us a beautiful gift tonight with her poetry, and I know that this is merely the beginning." Cheers erupted from the crowd and Claire felt her cheeks flush with warmth. "Thank you, Dad," she called out, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. "I want to propose a toast," her father continued, his voice steady and filled with love. "To dreams, to creativity, and to the courage to share one's voice. May we all continue to support one another and remind each other of our worth. And to Claire, may your words light the way for others, just as they have for us tonight." As glasses clinked and laughter filled the air, Claire felt a rush of emotion, a sense of belonging that wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. It was more than just a moment of recognition. It was a reminder that she was not alone in her journey. The support of her family and friends was a foundation beneath her, propelling her forward. Even as the party continued, Claire felt a shift within herself, a deeper understanding of who she was and who she was meant to be. And with every passing moment, she realized that sharing her story was not just about her own journey. It was about connection, about the threads that bound them all together in this tapestry of life. As the night wore on, Claire mingled and laughed, her heart brimming with joy. She had stepped out of the shadows and into the light, and for the first time, she felt the thrill of possibility coursing through her veins. The future was no longer something to fear, but a canvas waiting for her to paint her story. The air was filled with vibrant energy, and as Claire looked around at the faces of those who loved her, she felt ready to embrace whatever came next. She was a writer, a dreamer, and this time she was determined to let her voice be heard, one word and one moment at a time. Claire found herself amidst the swirling colors and sounds of the party, her heart still echoing with the joy of her earlier performance. The applause had felt like a warm blanket wrapping around her, and now she couldn't shake off the lingering buzz of adrenaline that coursed through her veins. She stood for a moment against the bar, soaking in the jubilant atmosphere, her gaze flitting between familiar faces. "Hey, Claire." A voice interrupted her thoughts, and she turned to see Jake, her older brother, making his way towards her, a grin plastered across his face. He was dressed impeccably in a navy blazer that complemented his easy charm. "You were phenomenal. Seriously, I was just telling Dad that you should be a full-time poet." "Thanks, Jake," she said, her cheeks flushing with pride. "It was a little nerve-wracking, but I'm really glad I did it." "Nerve-wracking? You looked like you were born to be up there," he laughed, nudging her playfully. "And hey, your poem, deep stuff. I didn't know you had that in you." "Oh, there's plenty more where that came from," Claire joked, rolling her eyes. "Just you wait until I unleash my collection on the world. It's bound to give you an existential crisis." "Bring it on," he chuckled, leaning against the bar beside her. "But seriously, I'm really proud of you. You've always had this quiet strength, and I think it's finally coming out." Claire smiled, heart swelling at her brother's words. Growing up, Jake had been the one to champion her interests, from her penchant for reading to embracing her love for writing. But he had also been the one to gently prod her when she shied away from sharing her work. "I appreciate that. It's just, sometimes I feel like my voice gets lost in the noise, you know." "Not anymore," Jake said, his eyes brimming with sincerity. "Tonight was a turning point. If you don't take the leap now, you might always stay in the background. And trust me, the world could use your words." "Wow, thanks for the pep talk, brother dear," Claire teased, though a part of her felt buoyed by his encouragement. "I'll have to remember this moment when I'm buried in self-doubt again." "Anytime," he replied, raising his glass in a mock toast. "To Claire the poet." "To Claire the poet," she echoed, clinking her glass against his. Their laughter mingled with the distant sounds of music and chatter, and Claire felt a warmth spread through her as she watched her brother's infectious enthusiasm. It was as if the world around her had shifted, and for the first time, she felt truly present. Just then, Claire's mother approached, her eyes glistening with unshed tears of joy. "Oh, Claire, sweetheart, you were magnificent," she exclaimed, enveloping her daughter in a tight embrace. "You brought the entire room to a standstill." "Mom, you're going to make me cry," Claire teased, but the emotional weight of her mother's words settled comfortably in her heart. "Don't you dare cry. We've already had enough tears for one night," her mother chuckled, holding Claire at arm's length to admire her. "You've always had such a gift. I'm so proud of you for sharing it." "Thanks, Mom," Claire murmured, the warmth of her mother's admiration wrapping around her like a comforting blanket. "I just hope it resonated with someone." "It did," her mother assured, glancing back toward the crowd. "I overheard Eliza telling your father how much she loved it, and Marcus, he's already asking how he can help share your work." "Really?" Claire's stomach fluttered at the thought. "That's wow." "Exactly, you've sparked something tonight. Just remember to nurture it," her mother said, her voice softening. "And don't let fear dim your light." "I won't," Claire promised, her heart swelling with gratitude. "This is a new beginning for me." As the evening wore on, Claire found herself drifting between groups, her confidence blossoming as she shared snippets of her work and chatted about her aspirations. The vibrant discussions became a fabric that intertwined her with the people she loved, and she felt herself weaving in and out of laughter, stories, and warmth. "Claire," a familiar voice called, and she turned to find Eliza approaching, her smile bright and inviting. "I wanted to thank you for your poem earlier. It struck a chord with so many of us, and I've been talking to a few folks who'd love to help you get your work out there." "Wait, really?" Claire's excitement bubbled over. "What do you mean?" "Well, I know a few local publishers who are always on the lookout for fresh voices," Eliza explained, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "If you're interested, I'd be happy to connect you." I don't even know where to begin. This all feels a bit overwhelming," Claire admitted, her heart racing. The prospect of sharing her work on a larger scale filled her with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Eliza placed a reassuring hand on Claire's shoulder. "That's perfectly normal. Just take it one step at a time. You have something valuable to offer and the world deserves to hear it. I promise you'll find your way." Claire took a deep breath, the possibilities swirling in her mind. "I'd love your help. I think it's time I finally embrace this part of myself." As they continued to chat, Claire felt a sense of clarity washing over her, a realization that she was no longer hiding in the shadows. With every word shared, she was stepping further into her identity as a writer. It felt liberating. "Can I steal you for a second?" Jake interjected, breaking Claire's focus as he approached with a playful grin. "I need to show you something." "Sure, what's up?" Claire asked, intrigued. He led her to a quieter corner of the hall, away from the clamor of laughter and music. "I thought you might like to see this," he said, pulling out his phone and scrolling through his gallery. "Remember that old notebook of yours? The one from high school. I found it while cleaning out the attic." "You did," Claire said, her intrigue piqued. "I thought I lost that ages ago." "Here it is," he said, turning his phone towards her. He showed her a photograph of her worn notebook, its pages yellowed with age. "What struck me is how much you've grown since then. You've always had a way with words, but it feels like you've finally stepped into your own." She studied the image, nostalgia washing over her as she remembered the countless times she had poured her heart onto those pages, weaving stories and poems filled with hope and uncertainty. "I can't believe you found it. That feels like a lifetime ago." "Yeah, well, it's a reminder of your beginnings. And now, you're on the brink of something amazing," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "Thanks, Jake," Claire said softly, her heart warm. "I really needed to hear that." As they stood there, the celebratory energy of the party still echoing in the background, Claire felt her sense of self solidifying. She had spent so long hiding her light, and now she was finally ready to shine. It wasn't just about the applause or the recognition. It was about embracing who she was and sharing that with the world. "Hey, are you two plotting something sneaky over here?" Their father's voice rang out, interrupting their moment. He approached with a playful grin, holding a slice of cake in one hand. "You're missing out on the best part of the party." "Just reminiscing," Jake replied, nudging Claire playfully. "I was reminding Claire how far she's come." "Ah, that's my girl," their father said, pride radiating from him. "Remember, Claire, each step you take is part of your journey. Don't be afraid to embrace it wholeheartedly." "I won't," Claire promised, the weight of her father's words settling into her heart. "I'm ready to share my voice." "Good, because I can't wait to see where it takes you," he said, his eyes twinkling with encouragement. As the night wore on, Claire felt more grounded in herself than ever. The earlier tension had transformed into a symphony of connections and shared moments, and she reveled in the love that surrounded her. She danced with friends, shared stories that felt like threads weaving through her life, and laughed until her cheeks hurt. With each conversation, she felt a little more of her confidence solidify, a little more of her story unfold. She was no longer the girl who felt like a ghost at her own family gatherings. She was Claire, the poet, the dreamer, the voice eager to be heard. Later, as the party began to wind down and the last of the guests gathered their things, Claire stood beside her father, watching the joyful chaos unfold before her. "This was a beautiful night," she said, leaning into him, grateful for the warmth of his presence. "It was, wasn't it?" he replied, a soft smile gracing his lips. "You've grown so much, Claire. I'm proud of you for stepping out of your shell."